And welcome in, everybody, to another episode of the High Low Sports Podcast. We appreciate you all joining us here live on this Wednesday evening, or if you're listening to us later on via YouTube or Twitter or the favorite podcast networks. Any way you're listening to us, we appreciate you joining us as well, too. It's a wonderful time in sports as we just wrapped up Thanksgiving. The bellies are still full and the waistbands are still really close to popping. It is DJ joined, as always, by my co-host, Kelsey. And Kelsey, USA, USA, USA. I think that's kind of the theme of going on right now as we head into this upcoming sports weekend. And how you feeling after this Thanksgiving? You recovering pretty well?
You know what? Despite the sadness that is Auburn, it is A-OK because the USA moved on to the knockout stage of the World Cup. Look, it's called soccer, ladies and gentlemen. Believe what you see. If you guys don't know the history of soccer, I got to say this first and foremost. Up until 1976, the reference of the sport that they now call football in England was called soccer everywhere in the world. Was not called football. It was called soccer. So, ladies and gentlemen, stop ignoring your roots. You want to talk about history and representing your history? It is soccer, ladies and gentlemen. Let's not get it twisted. And especially now, it is definitely soccer after that. That was absolutely so much fun. But yeah, no, this weekend was fun. I mean, honestly, forget the food side of things. Just the sports side of things was just absolutely fantastic. You had World Cup. Yes, I did say forget the food side of things.
But man, I
had my Thanksgiving dinner early on in the year. So, I had it 2 weeks early. We talked about that last episode. I had it 2 weeks earlier. So, this Thanksgiving was more like, all right, you got to go cook for yourself. And then I tried to cook on the grill, and the grill didn't work. And so that was disappointing. And then Auburn lost. And that was super disappointing. Actually, I think I was a little bit more disappointed about the grill not working than I was about Auburn losing. I kind of expected it, to be real. But yeah, no, I mean, hey, forget the food. The sports was great.
Just forget that. Forget the waistband. The waistband was great. The sports, you know what? A little bit of disappointment, but it was a fun weekend overall. And kind of alluded to it, we're going to go right into the tip-off as well to get ourselves underway with some of the sports topics going on around the world today. And for the tip-off, you kind of started us off. We're going to go right into it. World Cup. The big one, the big one talked about right now is USA advancing past the early stages as well, too, with a clutch victory over Iran as well, to a 1-0 win. That some good, some bad, some ugly, and some pain nonetheless. But the USA is moving on after a pretty eventful early stages. You got a draw with England, you got a draw early on, and then a win too, like 2 draws and a W. A very eventful early start for the USA.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely crazy. And by the way, I'm glad you pronounced Iran correctly. We didn't need any of their sports reporters giving us any shtick on this one on how to pronounce Iran or Iran or Iran or
Aaron, Eeyore.
At this point in time, look, you got enough problems in your country. Don't ask our team captain about the problems that your country is facing. We don't know. He doesn't know. He's 24 years old. And that's the great thing about the USA. They fielded the absolute youngest team in the World Cup in their final match day against Iran. And guess what? That team got the dub. Christian Pulisic literally laying it all on the line. Laying it all on the line for this one. He sacrificed his manhood, his future children for the United States. And was it worth it? Maybe not if you can't have kids. We don't know. We don't know how bad that actually really that injury was. But I will say that as of right now, yeah, it was definitely worth it. It was fantastic. And on top of that, there's a better part of this whole conversation. Mexico today got eliminated from the World Cup. Despite now, I will say this, Mexico did everything they could to come back. They scored all the goals they needed to. The biggest issue, they let Saudi Arabia score 1, but before that, they could not advance past Poland because guess what? They had too many issues with yellow cards. The fifth tiebreaker in the World Cup was actually going to be in play had they not given up the goal to Saudi Arabia. And, of course, Mexico wouldn't get it past yellow cards. They get too many yellow cards. We've talked about that all the time in CONCACAF qualifying. So, a very hilarious story there that Mexico doesn't make it. And the USA, in their return to the World Cup, does make it to the knockout stages. Very exciting. Now, the next round, maybe not so much. But that one's very exciting for us.
I say that Mexico game felt like I was watching a Cowboys game with all the yellow that's popping in and out all over the place as well. But you mentioned the USA. It was great to get to the knockout stages, but now you got a little bit of a mini juggernaut there in the Netherlands coming up as well, too. Not quite like England or France or those teams that Charles Barkley is calling out necessarily, but Netherlands could have. If we're going to do betting odds, which we'll talk some betting later as well too, the Netherlands will probably be the favorite in that one coming out of the gate. You'd say.
Let's just put it this way: in FIFA World Cup or World Rankings right now, I do believe that The Netherlands is 5th.
Oh,
Let me double check that. Sorry, 8th. Sorry, my apologies.
oh,
8th. They were one of the few seeded teams going into the World Cup, and that's why they were ranked so highly to get there. But yeah, Netherlands absolutely fantastic, and wow, this is going to be a tough draw. The good thing for the U.S., not totally top tier. Like they're not running on full gear right now. Netherlands. Something is going on with their connecting their midfield to their front line and not able to score enough goals. With that said, they still don't look like they're ready to get beat by a minnow anytime soon. But the good thing is the U.S. is well disciplined, and as has been said by many, a coach from other countries at this point in time might be the most tactically disciplined team in the World Cup today, which is shocking to hear any team ever or any coach ever say about the United States. If you ever watch the U.S. play soccer, tactics are not our strong suit, and it's not Greg Berhalter's strong suit either. So I don't know where they're getting this information, but yeah, evidently the U.S. is really tactically sound this year somehow. I don't know where this magic came from. I don't know if it's the barking bear that is Tyler Adams, just keeping everybody in order. I don't know, but it is it's fantastic to hear. So maybe there's an opportunity. The big issue: Virgil van Dijk in the back line for Netherlands, Luke De Jong in the middle, kind of pulling the strings for everything. Trying to make sure he doesn't get on the ball too often and devastate us. And then Memphis Depay up front, kind of resurging in his career. He failed at Man United, left Man United, remembered how to score goals again, and now he's at Barcelona scoring all kinds of goals next to Lewandowski. So, you got to be afraid of. So that back line, Walker Zimmerman, whoever starts back there is, let's just say they have their work cut out for them.
And it does sound like from Polic himself, it looks like he is planning on playing this Saturday, posting from the hospital bed. Great job, guys. I will be ready to go. So that is a positive sign for the USA as well, too. So we're putting the nose to the fire here for you on this one. Do they pull it off? Does USA pull it off? We're putting the waistband to the fire.
Oh yeah, I forgot one. Thank you, Andrew in the chat. Cody Gapko, who is the potential breakout player of the year this year, as far as the World Cup goes. We always see one every year. Do the USA pull it out? Oh,
if you were placing $1.55 on this one, would you do it?
If I place $1.55, I have a chance to win 50. I mean, at this point in time, I might actually do that. But yeah, no, look, I mean, realistically, if you told me I had $20 and that's what I can only place it on this game, and I have to place it on one to get my money, to get my money's worth, I'm going to say Netherlands because top to bottom, they're a terrifying team. With that said, he's not the same Virgil that was 3 years ago, the world's best defender, potential Golden Ball winner defender, which is shocking because no defender ever wins the Golden Ball. But he had the opportunity to end up a finalist, and he's not that same player. He's a little bit slower coming off the injury. So I think there's opportunities for the U.S. And you can't end the game in the draw in the knockout stages.
You're refusing to say yes guarantee or no guarantee. You're refusing to go.
I cannot give a guarantee on either side, and it hurts me because there is some freakish nature to the U.S. And let me say this: if Gio Reyna gets 45 minutes plus in this game, along with Pulisic, Weston McKennie, Tyler Adams, and Timothy Weah, if those guys can all play together for 45 plus minutes, the USA has a plus 50% chance of advancing.
Which honestly, I think if you would have told us that before even these early stages started, anyone would have taken that as well too. When you consider the last two World Cups, quote unquote, for the U.S. Now you're saying there is a chance against the Netherlands, and not a puncher's chance, but a realistic chance. I think you'll take that. I think most people will take that.
Now, if Gio does not play for 45 plus minutes with those guys, those odds drop to about 30%. Like you got a third of a chance to make it there at that point in time, and it's a bummer. But yeah, that's the kind of the truth. Gio Reyna is a guy that, unless he's nursing an injury, I don't know what's going on in that situation. I do think he needs to be on the field. And Jesus Ferrer as well. Just a dude that just scores goals. The old Taylor Twellman, the old, the poacher, if you will, the guy that gets – everybody hates the poachers, right? Until you need a goal. And then you're like, God, I'm glad I have that poacher on my team. And I'm so glad there's a Taylor Twellman on the U.S. national team back in the day. And it's like they wish they had him in 2006 at the World Cup. And I think we're kind of seeing the same thing. Jesus Ferrer needs some time for the U.S. And just put a guy he just shows up in the right places, right time. Chicharito Hernandez, Javier Hernandez, if you guys know who that is, made a living going to some of the biggest teams in the world by just scoring goals off of his face, off of his butt, off of his chest. for just being in the right position. He wasn't great. He just showed up in the right spots. So.
Either way, we could tell the entire country should be tuned in on Saturday and ready to lock in on this one as well. Too. We saw how the turnout for the game against Iran, how it seemed like the entire country was watching. Well, crank it up to 11. It's been a long time since the men's U.S. soccer team has something to look forward to in the World Cup, or at least something worth watching.
Yeah, so between England and Iran, those are the two highest watched U.S. men's two highest watched soccer matches ever. And that says a lot. Obviously, the England game being a lot higher, but the Iran game right there in second fiddle right now. That tells you how much people are starting to tune in.
And a combined 1 goal score between the two of those games as well, too, which, that might be why we saw the numbers change just a little bit. You know how anxious Americans can get when it comes to these sports as well, too. It's high action all the time. But
don't talk to those SEC fans about that.
Oh, we're going to talk about some of them coming up here soon. Don't you worry about that. I know you got some words for them, but we're going to go from one form of football, which, as you mentioned, it is soccer, but one form of football. We're going to go to the next one. We're going to head to the gridiron to talk about the NFL American football now. And there's a lot of quarterback movement going on this week. It felt like some guys getting benched, some guys that should get benched, some injuries. But we're going to focus on just one right now, and it's going to be the return of Browns quarterback Deshaun Watson. Finally back is practicing as QB1 right now as well, too. He'd been practicing the last couple of weeks, but this officially reinstated this week, making his debut, of course, against the Houston Texans, because, of course, they did that on purpose.
Of course.
I want to start with the very simple question that both of us will both have an answer for, but what do you expect to see this week in particular? What do you expect to see from him in his return game? Granted, he hasn't played in over 700 days, an actual regular season game.
I expect to see Derek Stingley showing Deshaun Watson his tail lights as he takes one to the house. That's what I expect to see at least one time in this game. You do not go for 2 years without throwing a professional pass at a high level of this sport and expect to just walk in after a week and a half worth of practicing and be the great player you once were. There's no way. I'm sorry if it happens. So be it. You know what? That's fine. I'm wrong. But I don't see it happening. I think it's going to be a lot of what we saw with Jacoby. I think we might even see early season Jacoby, like first 2 weeks of the season Jacoby. Maybe we'll say week 3, 4 Jacoby, where, yeah, he showed flashes, but you're not getting a whole lot. You're going to get a guy that's going to be literally seeing ghosts because he's like, I don't want to take a hit. I don't want to take a hit. That offensive line isn't great right now, not in pass blocking. So it's not going to change a whole lot, I don't think, for Deshaun, for the Browns in general, whether Deshaun's in there or not. I don't think he's ready yet. I don't think it takes time to get to that level again, and you don't just take time off and don't even see a practice field. So you don't even get practice reps for 10 of these weeks. Yeah, there's a lot there to unpack, but I'll just keep it simple. Just no, I won't expect a whole lot more different from Jacoby to Deshaun this week. I think expectations are way too high.
But you think the Browns will still win, it sounds like, or still thinking about
look, you could roll out me out there at quarterback, and we're gonna beat the Texans because I got a very simple job: hand the ball off to Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, and whoever else shows up at running back, Jerome Ford. Take your pick. One of these guys is gonna break off a 40-yarder at any point in time because they're impossible to tackle. So yeah, I think they still win. I just don't think it's gonna be like a 40-10 beatdown like people are expecting.
I'll say I think it's going to be like a 30-10 beatdown, but that is, as you mentioned, because the Texans don't stop the run very well. We saw it a lot in that Eagles game as you can run on them a lot. So I agree with you in that. I don't think we're going to see 2020 Deshaun roll right out and throw for 404 tuds. I don't think he's going to roll out and do that. I think he's going to get 3 tuds all from like in the red zone area because they're going to run right down the field, play action, flip it to Njoku, flip it to the corner to Amari Cooper where they're wide open because the defense sells out on Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt in a condensed field. Or Deshaun rolls out, defense comes down. Small things like that. I don't think he's going to light it up because we do look at his career. Obviously, last time we saw him, he was elite, 2020. Led the league in passing yards, top 2 or 3 in completion percentage at about 70%. He was incredible. That's the outlier, though. Let's not forget his few years before that, he was really good, obviously. But not that. Like that, we don't know if that was that's an outlier. So we can't base everything on that, even though it was the last time we saw him. That being said, it's the Texans. Lovie Smith is a really good defensive mind. There's only so much he can do when you have a very limited amount of talent to work with right now. I think his goal will be to kind of do that. Like, let's try and stop the run and make Deshaun be as he hasn't been around for so long. But at the same time, Kevin Stefanski's going to know better than that. He's like, look, they can't stop
Yeah.
the run. We're not going to put Deshaun in a position to look bad, I guess. Kevin Stefanski's not let that happen. You have Nick Chubb. He's going to get you 120 and a touchdown. Kareem Hunt will steal a touchdown from him in the red zone. Or maybe not a touchdown, but he'll steal some carries too. Like
he might steal a touchdown from him in the red zone.
He just might actually. And I think that defense is going to get after it. I mean, I don't even know who their quarterback is this week, because it's not Davis Mills. It's the guy that they bet. I can't if nothing else, they're going to get so many opportunities. It's not going to matter because I don't think that offense is moving the ball at all. It's going to look worse than the Bears versus the Browns did last year when it was like -4 net passing yards. So
Kyle Allen.
There we go. That's who it was. So I rest my case. I think it'll still probably be 35-10. I think Deshaun will look fine. I don't think he'll look like MVP Deshaun Watson, like some people think he will be right away, but I don't think he's going to look heinously bad either at the same time. Like it's still going to be a comfortable win, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing he's going to face is that decision-making situation. Like, I think he's going to think a receiver's open, and this is why I say Derek Stingley's going to show him the taillights on a pick six, is I think he's going to bait him, especially in a guy like Amari who loves to hit those hitch routes right just beyond the sticks, 11, 12, 13 yards, that hitch area. He loves to hit those hitch routes around there, and if Deshaun is off by a millisecond or even an inch, that's getting housed by Derek Stingley. I'm sorry, that's like... There's no other because there's nobody that's going to be between them unless they put a running back in the flats. There's nobody that could stop Derek Stingley at that point in time because Deshaun's not about to chase him down. We saw what happened the last time a Browns quarterback tried to tackle somebody in the open field when we dealt with this is the aftermath of that. So I think this is just I think Deshaun's he's going to have to deal with the decision making issues like the rust on that. But again, let's be real about this Browns team. Between Myles Garrett on defense, Jadeveon Clowney. That secondary, can we honestly say Kyle Allen can throw for, 200 yards? I'll give you. I'm just gonna say 200. I don't even want to say 100 because I really wanted to say 100 yards, but I think he can at least get that. But 200, I don't think so.
If the Texans are gonna, I'm not even gonna say win this game, but keep it close, it's gonna be because Dameon Pierce gets you $160 and is controlling the game. Because we talked about the Texans' run defense. The Browns' run defense is nothing too shiny either. They got talent all over the place. Sometimes
Jaden's finally healthy.
That too, and he played probably his best game of the year last week against Tom Brady as well. We saw what those corners can do. The problem is they have 3 boundary corners, but no slot corners, and you can't play 3 guys on the boundary. So I think that's where they've been shaky, but there's a lot to look forward to with that one. I'm really curious to see what his return looks like, and we're not even going to get into all the off the field issues. That's a whole nother episode in itself. Basically,
we're not going to talk about that.
There's a whole lot going on surrounding that one. Centering on just on the field though, is curious to see what it's going to be like with that game speed, like you mentioned as well. Too, no one's doubting the talent. We see it all the time. He can throw laser beams in practice all day long. What can he do in this game situation with so much time off? Is it like a situation when Russell Wilson ended up with the Broncos? Suddenly it's like, wow, this is not what we remember. Or is it like when Matthew Stafford joined the Rams last year? It's like, oh my goodness, this is what we've been missing his whole career. Or is it something?
Let's not forget that Matthew Stafford with the Rams the first couple weeks weren't pretty.
I mean, those first couple weeks he was pretty nice. I mean, he tore up. Him and Cooper Kupp tore up the Bears. That middle section though, Lord have mercy, did he start throwing picks?
But I will say, if you do want something to look forward to this game that's not on the field and that's not to deal with the Deshaun Watson stuff, the Texans receivers for the My Cause My Cure are wearing John Mechie themed cleats this week, which is so cool. They all got together, all have the same design, John Mechie themed cleats for the receiving room. So I definitely think that's an awesome thing. If you guys don't know John Mechie's story, dealing with cancer right now, recovering from that. So definitely, promising young rookie, unfortunately dealing with cancer. So it's a situation where you hate to talk about it sometimes because it is he is so promising right now. And hell, you don't know. Maybe he comes back and he's great. We don't know what's going to happen, but obviously dealing with a life-threatening issue, and his teammates, despite him not being there, are still supporting him.
Absolutely. There's a lot. It's going to be probably, you'd have to imagine it's going to be one of the most eyes on the game of the entire year's old. Maybe not the most watched because we know how Cowboys on Thanksgiving like to inflate those watch numbers. But as far as just eyes keeping a peek at this game, it's going to be one of the biggest ones of the year for sure. And it's nice to see that the Texans receivers doing that because I think they know it's going to be a spotlighted type game too. So very, very kudos on them. There's some good and some very ugly and some very intriguing all around it. But that'll be all for football in this tip-off section. Now we're going to go to the hard. We're going to talk a little bit about NBA as well too, because surprisingly enough, we're about a quarter away through the season. We're already at about 20 games played for a lot of these teams as well too. And We're going to keep this one pretty quick. We're just going to talk about some surprises, some disappointments, and maybe some trends that we see going forward. So I'll start with you. As far as a positive surprise, what's something that's surprising you in a positive manner about the NBA season so far?
I'm gonna be a homer right now. I'm gonna say the Kings. Shocking right now. 10-9. I am so in shock right now that they're top half of the Western Conference. 3 games behind the Clippers right now for that 5th seed. I don't know what else to say. Like, I'm shocked. I'm flabbergasted at this point in time. The other one I'll also add in is Luka Doncic, absolutely dominating points per game right now. I kind of expected him to have a great season, but like this is getting he's getting a little crazy right now on everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can tell if he just has a little bit of help, if some of those guys could just step up around and be a little more consistent, I think they could be dangerous as well too. I think that way his numbers will kind of match the record a little bit. For me, what I'm looking at surprises, I'm going to stay in the West and I'm going to go kind of not too dissimilar. I'm looking at the New Orleans Pelicans. We both kind of talked about if they stay healthy, they could be a pretty good team. We like them a lot. Brandon Ingram, Zion, CJ McCollum, like there are some really nice pieces there. They're casually just sitting at number 3 in the West at 12-8. But what really stands out to me about it so far is they are 2nd in the West and 4th overall in point differential over at plus 5.5. The teams that are better than them, the Boston Celtics, who are absolutely killing people right now and have not won 9 of their last 10. The Cleveland Cavaliers, who basically started 9 and 10, 9 out of 10. It felt like, and came out of the gates like Ghostbusters before coming back down to earth a little bit. And the Suns, who, well, over the last 4 years, we know the story of the Suns right now. Like, this is what they do. They absolutely beat the brakes off people, especially early in the season. So to see the Pelicans in that conversation is very, very positively surprising me. And it's good for health reasons, seeing Zion and Brandon Ingram and all them being consistently healthy. So maybe the Pelicans do finally take that extra leap we've been kind of looking forward to. All those young players, most of which they got from the Lakers, because the Lakers are the Lakers. And now they're in a position to potentially take a next big step, almost not going to say like the Warriors did about half a decade ago when they just kind of burst onto the scene, but kind of a team that's slowly working their way up. So I do like to see what the Pelicans are doing. We'll see if they can keep it going, though, because it is a very long season ahead. We're only a quarter of the way through. So next we'll go and take a look at some disappointments. And for me, I feel like there's been quite a few disappointments early on right now, just from what I hoped for, what I started, and what actually happened. So I'll go and let you get first dibs on this one. Which disappointment do you want to put onto the hot seat first?
I'm gonna say Kevin Durant and the Nets. That's my number one disappointment.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, that fell apart, and that fell apart quick. And I love Jacques Vaughn. I think he's gonna have a great future as a coach. I love Steve Nash. I thought he was going to have a great future as a coach, just not with the Nets. I never thought he was a great hire for the Nets. That was just terrible. That was a terrible option. That should never be anybody's first job. Just like it should never be anybody's first job to coach at Alabama or an Auburn or anything like that.
Like, hey, here's your first job, and immediately one of your 2 best players says we don't even need a coach before you even get a chance to get into a practice facility. Exactly.
So, the Nets number one. That's just the Nets and Kevin Durant. I lump Kevin Durant in there because I'm so high on Kevin Durant's skill and his talent, and I think even with all the issues, we saw LeBron do it for decades, or I say decades, for years in Cleveland. We're carrying really bad teams, and let's be honest, Kevin Durant doesn't have really bad players around him. He has a lot of really pretty average to above average to highly talented players around him, and they can't win more games than they lose. Now they're back to 500. So yeah, okay, you're doing better, but 2-7 is what they started or something like that, something stupid like that.
Because they've won like 6 of the last 10, so they're 6-4 in the last 10. So that means they were about 5-7 at one point, something like that. Yeah, it was not a good start. And
that's bad. And then I'm actually honestly I could go the obvious one in the Western Conference as well, that we already talked about. We harped on the last episode with LeBron and the crew. But I'm not. I'm going to actually talk about Minnesota and the failure of the use of Rudy Gobert. And by the failure of the use of Rudy Gobert, the making sure that Anthony Edwards is now failing as a young prospect. Anthony Edwards, as we talked about, is a slasher, high flyer, fantastic player going to the basket. You know what the worst thing for a player like that is?
2 towers.
A fat guy to stand in the middle of the basket and take defenders and put them right in Anthony Edwards' way. That is exactly what Rudy Gobert is. He's not the fat guy, but he's the big guy in the middle of the court, standing there taking all these defenders, bringing them to Anthony Edwards' side. And let's be honest, Anthony Edwards isn't the best distributor in the world. We're not talking about a Steph Curry or a Chris Paul or a Steve Nash with the ball. No, we're talking about a Gorgie Jang with the ball. Like
Vince
that's
Carter, basically. Like, he's going there to put the ball. He's going there to yam on people. He's not going there to drop it off to a guy with no offensive game who's standing in the way.
Anthony Edwards has one speed, and that is fast, and that is he goes high, and he gets over people. And there's nobody that's going to stop him except for his own teammates. And that's it. That's the problem. Is like you throw 5 bodies at Anthony Edwards, you can stop him. You throw 3 bodies at Anthony Edwards, Anthony Edwards has a great chance of scoring. The problem is that right now they're literally ignoring Rudy Gobert on offense and just running at Anthony Edwards. Like, you can't do it. If you're a young player like that, that's the worst thing you can have for your development. So I said this before. I don't think Anthony Edwards is going to pan out because I think the Timberwolves were going to hamper him somehow in his development. I didn't know how. Well, I found my answer. The answer is Rudy freaking Gobert is the reason that Anthony Edwards is going to have his growth dampened. And it just goes to show you how great Donovan Mitchell really was with Rudy Gobert being able to score 30 a night with that big old log in the middle of the field, middle of the court, just clogging up everything. And now you see him with Cleveland, and you just mentioned him, top 4 team in the league.
By the way, those 2 people who dipped out when you called him a big log, I think they're both from France. They probably immediately heard you call Rudy Gobert a big log and immediately jumped right out. I saw that number dip when you called him a log. But
hey, it's okay. You know what? It's either that or one of them is Jared, and I'm about to get a text message from Jared. One or the other. Because he's a giant Timberwolves fan, and he loves Anthony Edwards. And Jared, I'm telling you now, I told you before on your show, Anthony Edwards is going to be a great average NBA player.
And it's not really entirely any fault of his own. It's what the Timberwolves are doing.
Not. Like, if you want another great high flyer that we just have that's just going to end up disappointing. Like, he has all the talent, just the team hampers his development.
If you want to have 2 towers, you got to have 2 guys that have some form of offensive game. You can't have one that's just a giant tower than one guy who's a post scorer like Karl Anthony Towns, like Evan Mobley, Jared Allen, Evan Mobley.
I didn't even harp on the Karl Anthony Towns stuff because actually he hasn't been disappointing me this year because he's staying himself out on the 3-point line, and then Rudy Gobert's taking up all the space.
And now, fortunately, Cat's out for about 4 weeks. It looks like too. So of course, but
awful,
you want to have 2,
awful injury too.
Yeah, that calf strain look, that was gnarly looking. Like, that was not. But if you want to have 2 bigs, they got to be like modern day bigs that can move and work without the ball, that can pull up from a mid range, that can back cut. Like, they can't be, for lack of better, for your choice of words, logs. You have to have some sort of like Evan Mobley and Karl Anthony Towns. That would be something. Karl Anthony Towns and Kevin Love. You got something. Even Jared Allen, who has a limited offensive game but moves. He moves and he can guard out on the he can move. Rudy Gobert really can't move. He can move from block to block. That's kind of his forte. Which great player, but you have
one step for him.
Really,
he just rotates his hips and he's on the other side of the paint.
It's like a 2/3 split for him basically as well. So he can touch both at the same time. Like, it's a really bad fit together if you want to do the 2 modern bigs. And I can agree with you on that one. We could harp on the Lakers because that's an entire mess in itself. But I'm going to go to the Eastern Conference, and one that's kind of disappointing me a little bit. It shouldn't because there's still a lot of season left. But I'm looking at the Miami Heat starting at 10 and 11. Mm-hmm. Outside even the play-in tournament right now, they have won 6 of their last 4 or 6 of their last 10. They're 6-4 in the last 10. That means they were 4-5 at one point. Like, they're fluttering at that. Maybe we'll make the play-in tournament mark. And for a team that was the number 1 seed last year, I felt like they didn't get any worse. They might even got a little bit better. They just seem stuck in like second and first gear. It seems like they can't get it going in a lot of these games. Jimmy Butler will have some great performances. He can still be that dude. Tyler Hero can still get buckets. Bam is still Bam, but they just
had his first triple-double of his career too, by the way. Tyler Hero did.
Exactly. Like, it's there, but they're stuck, it feels like. Like, even right now, the Wizards are at 11 and 10. The Hawks at 11 and 10. The Nets you mentioned are ahead of them. The Knicks are ahead of them. They got to get on a win streak here, and that's what kind of concerns me with the Heat is they're very up and down. Problem is they've been stuck kind of down to start this season. Like last year, they started mostly high, had a little dip, and then came back up. This one, they started kind of low, so I'm not sure how I feel about them climbing up. But I think they'll be fine. They'll make it, but as far as like actually avoiding the play-in tournament, squeaking to the play-in tournament, it's a little shaky at the start as well because the Eastern Conference is weirdly competitive right now as well too. Like, there's obviously the 2 top dogs at the top. But everything after that is a bit of a dogfight right now.
Yeah, you're exactly right. It is shocking, let's be honest, to see a team with a guy like Jimmy just not be able to put it together. And with a coach like Spoelstra, like that's two things where if you put those two together, I'm like, that team's got to be a top 8 team in the regular season easily. They should be, right? And it's just something's not clicking again. But we sort of saw this towards that middle stretch last year, like where the Heat just were kind of like, with the Jimmy Butler fight and everything, and when he had the fight with Spoelstra and Udonis on the sideline, and the next thing you know, they're like, oh yeah, we figured it out. Like it feels like that situation again, except for there's no fighting this time. It's just like everybody's on their own. I mean, it is weird. They're also dealing with that FTX situation as well, with that whole crypto
Mess.
being the name of their court and stadium. So yeah, that's another part of it too.
And I will say, like, I'm pretty sure they'll be fine. Like you mentioned, this is pretty homeostasis for them. At least last year they had a cushion built in when they kind of went on that slump. This year they're starting with the slump. So we'll see what they have in mind. And maybe the East is just that good this year. Because as we mentioned, the East is looking really good. The West is obviously very top heavy, but the East is looking pretty solid. I mean, even the Bulls are 9-11, and I think we both think they'll turn it around too. So what an interesting turn of events here. So
Spoelstra's just getting ready to pad his stats for Coach of the Year again, and then retire after the season, getting another Coach of the Year, and just be like, I'm out of here, guys. I did everything. I took a team from the bottom to the top.
He knows what he's doing. He has a plan right now. It's Spoelstra's plan right now. But all right, so that will do it for our tip-off as well, to a little trip around the sports world. But that's going to take us now into Kelsey's second favorite part of every show. That is the main event, and the main event, of course, brought to you by our good friends over at Manscaped. I know it's Christmas time. I know a lot of you have already done some shopping. Some of you guys are waiting until the very last minute. No better place to go than to Manscaped right now. Use code HILOSPORTS at checkout. Save yourself 20%, and they're offering free shipping on a lot of things right now as well, too. Get yourself some soap. Get some nose trimmers. Get some ear trimmers. Get some crop stuff there, too. Crop preserver.
Crop preserver.
You can even get yourself some underwear, shirts as well, too. They got a little bit of everything for your men's grooming needs. The premier brand for that. Go and give it a look. Use code HILOSPORTS once again. Do you and the close people closest to you in your life a favor. Go check it out right now as well, too. So definitely would recommend that.
People close to you in life, because they don't want to
get real close. So, yeah, exactly. So we always appreciate working with them. They're a wonderful company and great to us as well. But main event now, we alluded to it earlier. We're going to go right into now. College football. We just came off of rivalry week. Not a little bit hectic, I guess you could say. For example, South Carolina upsetting Clemson, Michigan destroying Ohio State, not beating them, but destroying them. Going down the list, there's a lot of interesting games that came out of there as well, too. But it does set the stage for conference championships with a lot on the line. We're looking at the college football playoff right now. Georgia, number 1. Michigan now up to number 2. TCU at 3. USC at 4. Those are your 4 teams in. Ohio State and Alabama sitting at 5 and 6. Right on the cusp of. So we're going to get the worst part of this out of the way. Do you see a scenario in which the committee finagles both Alabama and Ohio State?
I'm going to say yes if one of the teams falters. I don't think if all the teams win and they cover their spreads, which, by the way, the spreads for these games are like 2.5 points with the exception of Georgia, who I'm not worried about at number 1. If they lose to LSU, they're still going to be in the top 4. Nobody's bumping them out. That's the only exception, though. I think if any of the other 3 teams falter, I do think, because let's be honest, if Michigan loses to Purdue,
they're going to kick Michigan out of there.
Gone. Like out the door, Big Blue is going to be blue and purple as they are getting bounced down the sidewalk away from the college football playoff. Like it's not going to be a pretty situation, and Ohio State would walk right into that position. I do think, though, between the two, if I had to choose one that I think is more likely to get in, I do think Ohio State has a better case. But again, it really is going to be if one of these teams falters or one of these teams is like I hate to say it, but if TCU has to hit another walk-off win against Kansas State, despite how good Kansas State has been this season, let's not forget, this team has been very good. Deuce Vaughn is a fantastic running back. If they have to hit a walk-off kick again, and let's say USC walks the dog on Utah, I do think that's a situation where TCU might slip. Just enough that they could be like, you're not better than Ohio State. Here you go, CJ Stroud. You're not leaving Ohio State yet. Which I hate. I do hate this. There should be no reason that, first of all, Tennessee is not above Bama. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care that now their quarterback's not healthy. We don't talk about nows. We talk about who they played and what happened in those games. And in like opponents and in head-to-head, Tennessee beat Bama and beat the like opponent that beat Bama, which is LSU, by the way, in case anybody's wondering who that team
Comfortably
is.
beat them too, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, comfortably, 21 points. In
Period.
Death Valley, by the way, in Death Valley. So there should be no reason even Alabama has a sniff at this, but for some reason, again, Alabama Invitational. Ohio State, I do understand being at the 5 seed. I'm not surprised with Ohio State being at the 5 seed. I'll be honest. I think this is fine. If let's say they played if they played the game in week 2, I honestly think Ohio State should still be number 5 and probably has a good case to potentially be in the college football playoff. Because it was the last game before the bowl, before the championships, it's like people are like, "Oh, it's Ohio State, they're bad." Like they weren't that bad. Let's be honest. It's like they still were a really good team until they went up against Michigan. Although that just tells you how good that Michigan running game was. So I don't know. I think of the two teams, to answer your question, Ohio State might have the best opportunity to get in. I hope neither one gets in. I'm going to say no. But if one of the teams falters, TCU gets in. TCU gets bumped.
I'm just imagining the absolute chaos. Let's say USC and Michigan and TCU all lose. Then what the heck is going to happen at that point? So I think Michigan will still stay because they'll still get their chance to get Alabama and Ohio State in there. They won't feel the need to kick out Michigan, if that makes sense. So I think somehow they'll do something like that where Ohio State will be a higher seed than Michigan too. Even though
I'd say they'd slip Michigan to 4, slide Ohio State to 2. Bama, no, they'd say Michigan to 3, Ohio State to 2, Bama to 4.
They'd force the match on us with the game right away.
Which would kill me because you still have TCU at 12-1 with a better record than Bama. I still think deserves that opportunity, which might happen. Might be Ohio State's the only one that jumps in, but they would literally jump to too. They would be like, "Oh, well, we were off, so we get to jump over everybody else."
Exactly. They'll find some way to mucky up the waters as well too. What I think would be interesting, let's say LSU pulls the upset on Georgia. Obviously, Georgia's still making it. They'll still get in there. They'll just go from the 1 seed to the 4 seed probably. You can't put LSU in
the 3 seed.
Yeah, really. You can't put them LSU in there because they have 3 losses at this point. They pretty much beat Alabama and they beat Georgia. That's all they've really done this year at that point, and done just enough obviously to get there. Let's say USC also loses. You can't bump out Georgia. You could bump in Ohio State at that point. Like it's very, very interesting, and that's the downside about the championship games. Is you see teams like Alabama and Ohio State that aren't even eligible for their conference championship, but they have just as good a chance as anybody to get in by sitting down and doing nothing. As goofy as it is, I feel this is why I like the idea of an expanded playoff, where if you were a championship winner, you're automatically in. For example, obviously, if Purdue pulled off over Michigan, they would be like the meme that shows a bunch of soldiers behind a wall and then a clown holding a gun too. They'd be kind of the clown in this situation. But if you pull that off, you deserve it at that point. Like
at large bids, ladies and gentlemen. At large, look, we see it in the tournament every year in basketball. Why not? Why not just one time? Let's just give me 12 teams. Give me the Power 5 winners of every Power 5 conference. Give me the best available 3 to 6 or 3 to 4 from group of 5, unless they're obviously like a bunch of undefeateds, in which case, yeah, throw them all in there. And then the next best available after that to fill it out. Because, like, that could be fun. I mean, we could be looking at Ohio or Coastal Carolina or UCF. By the way, UCF in that run game under Gus Malzahn has been really fun to watch, potentially playing in one of these games. So, yeah, I don't know. I think there's opportunities there that give me expanded playoffs. I just want it. I just want the FCF playoffs in FBS. I think that'd be fantastic.
100%. We definitely agree on that one. But now we'll kind of circle back actually looking at the games we have coming up as well, too. So we mentioned Georgia taking on LSU as well coming up. I know we kind of just joked about it. I think Georgia's going to I think they're going to walk away with this one pretty comfortably. I think it'll be close early because LSU, they know each other. Jay and Daniels. Yeah. Whatever you want to say about Kelly, he is a good coach, obviously, at what he's done with there. But I do think Georgia's going to eventually walk away in the second half. I think they'll pull away and it'll be like a 35-20, something along those lines. This is kind of what I envision going on.
Honestly, probably pretty close.
I think we're pretty much on the same page.
It's not going to be pretty. I think LSU does have an opportunity to score a couple times, and the only reason they are going to is because their deep ball, especially deep ball at the sidelines, is actually really good. And that's one of the weaknesses for this Georgia team is for some reason they go into a cover 2 shell and they forget the sidelines exist. And they're just like, wait, what? 10 yards and I got to cover that guy? No, I'm not doing that. And so you saw it during the Florida game, for example, like it was just mental lapse after mental lapse in that situation. But it's usually after they get up like 21 points, it's like, forget it. We can give up a touchdown. And no, it's going to be a lot of running, though, I think. But a lot of running, a lot of Brock Bowers from the Georgia offense. So it's going to be a pretty easy game for him. Probably this might actually be the quickest of all of the games, the college championship games, just because of how much they're going to run the ball in this game, whether it's LSU on offense or Georgia.
Well, I think it's interesting to point out there's how they sometimes their secondary has like little lapses where they just kind of leave spots open, which is weird when you look at their secondary when you have a future top 10 pick at corner in Keely Ringo and a bunch of other probable draft picks there as well too. They actually reloaded that secondary way better than I thought they could coming off of
There's
last year.
4 guys that are getting drafted in that secondary.
Which is crazy because they just had like 9 guys drafted off that defense last year as well too, which is absolutely crazy. But I think we're kind of in agreement there. Next we got Michigan and Purdue, and honestly, if you'd have asked me this a week ago, I would have said like, well, Michigan squeaked by Ohio State probably then, so I don't know. It's tough. Blake Corum's injured. Now I don't think Purdue's going to be within 20. Purdue's cool. I like them. They deserve to be here, but Michigan showed they're a dog right now, and McCarthy gives them a little extra element at the quarterback spot. He's a little erratic, not the cleanest, but he can hit that deep ball if you put too many guys in the box, and he torched Ohio State with it. And then we saw Edwards with like 1 yard at halftime and then finishes with over 200 after what he did in the second half. So I'm going to say Michigan wins this
with
one.
With a broken wrist or arm or hand.
Like, I don't see this being close.
No, this
one
sucks to talk about because like I want to call it a wash, but at the same time, I have this inkling in the back of my head that Purdue's going to do something stupid and just mess up all of this and just ruin Michigan's night because that's how the Big Ten does things.
That is actually what Purdue likes to do. I mean, against Iowa, against Ohio State, they always like to beat the number 2 Big Ten team. And so, you know what, maybe Michigan should be number 3 instead.
Like Purdue versus number 2 teams in the Big Ten, I feel like should be its own like category in the world of just random know-how because have they beaten 7 number 2 teams in their history? Something stupid like that. Like when they face top 10 teams, if they're ranked 2 or 4, it's like they beat them 50% of the time. Something stupid like that, and it's just like I don't get why Purdue's good like that, but they are. But I honestly don't think that Michigan can mess this up. I'm literally saying that, and I'm seeing the flashback of my head, like when they always show the flashbacks of the talking heads, like, yeah, Michigan can't mess this up, and then they show the scoreboard of like 21-3, and Michigan's losing, and you're just like, I don't want to be that guy, that talking head, but I really feel like that's the situation we're in here. It's a trap game. If there's a trap game in championship week, this is the trap game of all trap games. But yeah, I'm going to say Michigan wins. I'm not going to say comfortably because I don't want to be that guy that gets the flashback on him. On himself, but yeah, I'm gonna say Michigan wins this one over Purdue.
Freezing cold takes, just making that in your head right now as well, too. Just making that Twitter post of freezing cold takes right now. But I think we're in agreement.
100%. Like I'm already putting it up on the poster. Like, yeah,
it's already ready to go. Next we got TCU going against Kansas State as well in that Big 12 championship game as well. And you mentioned Kansas State is really, really good, and TCU is really good. But TCU doesn't really blow people out too often. A lot of the games are a little bit closer. They do have some ass whoopings in there, but most of them are a little bit more competitive close. This is the one that I feel like lends a good chance for an upset. I don't think it will happen. I'm still going to say TCU pulls off. I think Dugan and Quentin Johnson, I think that they're just a dynamic duo right now. I mean, Johnson's probably going to be a top 10 pick in the NFL draft, maybe top 20, just his height, weight, speed, freakish. Dugan, obviously, he probably should be in the Heisman Trophy candidate like conversation. Just not quite flashy enough, I guess, but he's been absolutely outstanding. So I'm going to say TCU. I'm going to say it's a little sketchy there for maybe a quarter and a half, and then they start to slowly walk away and then slowly win it. But I think 28-21, something like that as well, too. I think this is a pretty good and competitive game.
I'm with you. I think there's a lot in this game that could surprise some people. Earlier this season they played TCU won 38-28. That's with Kendre Miller rushing for 153 yards and 2 touchdowns on 29 carries. Max Duggan in that game threw for 3 touchdowns as well. But here's the thing: is Deuce Vaughn wasn't on his game. Deuce Vaughn is just an absolute menace right now. And there's a sneaky part about this: is K-State is getting Adrian Martinez back. We all remember Adrian Martinez from Nebraska. And they're talking about using him in specialized packages that they might surprise somebody, might surprise TCU on some plays. And let's not forget Kendre Miller is coming off the injury. I don't know how much he's going to actually play, how much he's going to be useful. That's a big part of TCU's offense is just that run game right up the middle to set up Max Duggan to do whatever he wants to do. So I am a little worried about TCU in this game. I cannot lie about it. I cannot joke. I cannot kid. I'm worried about TCU in this game because I don't want them to lose because I don't want to see Ohio State in this.
Mm-hmm.
And I love Deuce Vaughn. I love the way he's able to run. You know what? I'm gonna say Kansas State gets an upset here. I think Kansas State upsets TCU in this one. And I might be wrong. This might be my moment, like freezing cold takes, and they get the dog walked on them. But in my opinion, I think Kansas State has an opportunity here with Deuce Vaughn and their offense and the way their defense plays. Like, let's not forget this. Kansas State is built on walk-ons. If nobody knows the history, it's like 50% of their players are walk-ons at one point in time. So I don't know what it is. Kansas State just does it. They do it differently. You got to be built differently to play in Manhattan, Kansas. That place is cold during the winters. So yeah, like they're playing in a dome. You get to watch them run on a track. So yeah, I'm gonna say K-State gets an upset in this one. As much as I love Max Duggan and this entire TCU team, I'm gonna say K-State gets it. Battle of the Purple People Eaters. That's what it is. It's the Battle of the Purple People Eaters.
Considering how close they were losing, I think it was Baylor a couple of weeks ago too, where they had the walk-off field goal as time expired. Like they've
a beautiful play, by the way.
Beautiful, but they're itching for it feels like they've just been itching to slip up a little bit. And then the last one, which I think a lot of people are looking at as a potential upset, USC taking on Utah. I think part of the reason they're looking at is I think a lot of people still aren't quite sold on USC because of the way they play. And Utah is very good at just punching people in the mouth and ruining the other Pac-12's good time. They've done it to Oregon the last few years. They do it to everybody. They just get in the way and they punch the other team in the mouth. I think this game is going to be ugly and close, but I do think Lincoln Riley, Caleb Williams, Jordan Hassan, I think the talent discrepancy is just going to be big enough to where they can make enough plays. 34-31, something along those lines. A really close game, similar to what USC-UCLA was before USC kind of pulled away late. So I think I'm going to give it to USC. I think they're going to hold on and kind of keep our hopes of a Pac-12 team making the playoff and not immediately getting dog walked like 49-3, like Oregon, Georgia was week 1. And I think Caleb Williams, this is a golden chance for him to punch that Heisman Trophy ticket if he puts on a really good performance. It doesn't have to be like Bryce Young against Georgia last year where he went absolutely insane. Just play pretty good at this point and get USC to the playoffs in their first turnaround year. I think that's a Caleb Williams Heisman Trophy if he can do that, which I honestly think he's going to put on a clinic. I think this has a 400-yard, 4-touchdown performance written all over it if they come in on their game, not looking ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and say USC should win this game. I'm worried they won't because I'm worried that a little bit of that Oklahoma-ness is going to pop out of nowhere and bite Lincoln Riley and Caleb Williams in the butt right now. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, it's the whole big game Bob Stoops curse. Big games somehow just can't pull it out. But with that said, they're at USC now. USC fight on, all that good stuff. Blah, 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 blah. Cameron Rising should be a very on some people's quarterback boards for Utah. Blah, blah, blah. With that, Caleb Williams is too good. I'm sorry. At the end of the day, Caleb Williams is just too good. Like, I could keep going and I just keep rattling off random stats for both teams. But no, Caleb Williams is just, his freakish athletic ability is stupid. What he did last week is not okay ever. Like what he did 2 weeks ago against UCLA, not okay to do in a primetime game. You should never do that to humans. He shouldn't make humans look like just sloths. Like that's really what he does. He makes a normal human, he makes an insanely athletic human look like they're moving like I run. And that's embarrassing. Like it shouldn't happen. I don't know what Caleb Williams is drinking down in LA, but let me get some of it because it's working for him. I'm gonna say USC wins. I'd love to. I'm a big Utes fan. I lived in Utah, grew up there. Had to pick one between the Utes and the Cougars. Obviously, I was a Utes fan. I wasn't Mormon, so I didn't get to go hang out with the BYU kids for sure. So, but yeah, I wish the Utes could pull this one off. I think there's too many question marks going on with Caleb Williams. I just think there's too much talent.
I agree with you, but I always have that. You remember in Jurassic Park when Goldblum's character said, "Nature always finds a way," or "Life always finds a way."
Yeah.
I'm worried that life is always going to find a way with Ohio State and Alabama, where they find a way to get them in there. It concerns me, like TCU, like you mentioned, slips up, and then USC slips up, and then, well, what do you know? We have a chance to get our two invitational teams back in there. Like I'm just worried that the committee always finds a way, like how life always finds a way in Jurassic Park. I hope I'm wrong because I like parity, and I think these teams have deserved it at this point. But we will have to wait and see. And if there's any push to get an expanded playoffs, well, keeping Alabama and Ohio State out of it, this might be just what they need as well too. Because suddenly the Invitational is missing their two invitational teams. But definitely a lot to look forward to. This weekend's going to be a whole lot of fun as well too. Last
By the
quick
way, don't
question
expect any fun. Don't expect any fun uniforms from Utah. They already announced theirs. They're going basic white with red helmets, red pants.
is that's almost more scary because that means they mean business. They're not. It's like when Mike Tyson used to walk out in just the plain black T-shirt, and the black shorts. It was almost more scary than if you walked out in the full garb, like we see the guys walk out today, or like when Floyd Mayweather got carried out on a throne. It's a little more intimidating to just see Mike Tyson in a plain black T-shirt looking like he's going to take your head off, or a black sweatshirt. So, you know, maybe I'm starting to reconsider this now. I'm starting to want to pick Utah at this point. Not
Yeah,
going,
I'm gonna have to change my mind here.
but I definitely looking forward to that game. Last question I have for you this weekend: Who's gonna be the guy that we're talking about Saturday night as like that standout performer? The one like which player is going to steal Saturday, more or less, like the headlines after Saturday.
Oh man. You know what? I'm gonna stick with it. I'm gonna say Deuce Vaughn. I think we're all gonna be talking about Deuce Vaughn. Win or lose, I think we're gonna talk about how Deuce Vaughn is a highly underrated running back and needs to be somewhere else showing off his talents. I think that's what we're going to be talking about come Saturday night. I think he's going to show. It's a noon game. He's going to show up on that hot track in AT&T Field and just absolutely go off. And like I said, win or lose, whether TCU wins or K-State is able to upset him with Deuce Vaughn behind or driving the car, I think that's the man we're going to be talking about at the end of the day.
Okay, I like that one, especially if they do pull off the upset, like you said too. It's gonna be hard not to pay attention because you got to imagine he's gonna have himself quite the game. The guy we obviously both talked about Caleb Williams. I'll skip that one as well too. I'm looking at Donovan Edwards from Michigan because with the Blake Corum injury, I don't know how much he's going to be available this week. But if he's even slowed up a little bit, we saw what Donovan Edwards could do. He's playing with that thumb injury as well too, so he can really only carry it in his left hand for the most part. I think I could see him coming in and putting on another just absolute clinic, especially if, let's say, McCarthy comes out slinging it right away and they're jumping on Purdue. I will look for Edwards to close it out and then to just say, Corum, we're going to save you for the playoffs. No need to risk someone rolling into that knee or any Friday night lights with Booby Miles. None of that stuff. We're not risking that. We're going to keep you right here standing right next to me in my khakis, and we're going to go and let just Edwards close this one out. And I think there's going to be a lot of talk if he has another 200-yard performance. Like, do you bench him for Corum in the playoffs? Do you ride the hot hand? And really what's going to happen is they're both going to get carries in the playoffs, and we'll see what they can do with it. But I think there's going to be a lot of talk of who is like, did he just take his job? Well, you know how it is every time someone has a big performance. So I look for it to be something along those lines as well, too. So give me Donovan Edwards. And, of course, we already both mentioned Caleb Williams. If they're going to win, he's going to put on a performance as usual and punch his ticket. His ticket to New York's already punched. Now he's going to punch back an extra carry back for luggage, if that makes sense to him. You know, 200 yards with his weak hand. Edwards can keep Corum healthy. We agree on that one 100%. Honestly, keep him. Just do that then in time for the playoffs. Run dual backs with McCarthy back there. You got the three running back super wishbone situation going on. Like there's a lot to work with there in Michigan, but definitely looking forward to this one. It's one of the best times of the year for college football as well. But that's going to do it for our main event, and that's going to take us into Kelsey's actual favorite part of every single show, and that is Crunch Time. And Crunch Time brought to you by our new friends over at Outlier. Not so much new friends as they're the same people who started and developed ColorCast as well too. And if you've been around with us for a while, you know what ColorCast is like. We've been working with them for a while. Outlier, a new sports betting app, and the tagline says it best for those of you who are watching the stream: bet smarter, not harder. Outlier gives you pretty much all the bets across major betting sports books, FanDuel, Caesars, DraftKings, all that. Gives you all of the odds through there, as well as the chance to see some trends as well. And for those of you who are watching us on the stream, or watching us maybe the next day or in the future, you're in for a treat. So we're gonna actually give you a little preview here of what it looks like here. And for those of you listening to us on the audio version, we appreciate you very much. We're sorry you don't get to join us, but go click the link in our bio, Outlier.bet /high-low sports. Try it out for yourself. 14-day free trial. Click on our link, helps us out. You get to try it as well too. But for those of you on the stream, take a look here. Right now we're looking at the games coming up this weekend in the NFL. You'll notice here we got the spreads. We got the spreads, excuse me, the money line, the overs, the unders. And you know what, Kelsey? I'm going to let you go and take it away. We're looking at these little green and red bars. And I know these are something that you really like as well, too. So I'll let you
Oh,
describe those green bars. Because I know when you first saw this, there's the happiest I've seen you lose like a kid underneath a Christmas tree.
so you always wonder when you're making a bet, right? Like, man, Detroit, they've been close in every game, right? But how close have they really been? Well, look in a game over 51 and a half combined points. Look how many times they have actually accomplished that opportunity, scoring over 51 and a half points. They've done it
Yes.
6 out of 10 times. So you got 10 options. They give you the last 10 games, last 10 moments that this opportunity has arisen, and they tell you exactly what it is. And actually, when you click on the games, you can actually get in more in depth with some of these bigger details, as well as you get like alternate spreads, you get alternate point totals, and all of these will give you information, give you trend lines, give you all the in-depth stats you need to make these picks. And honestly, I love it. We were making our player prop bets on 4th and 4 on Sunday. I was able to see when Nick Chubb was last able to score 2 touchdowns. Unfortunately, he didn't score 2 touchdowns, but the trend line said that if he was going to have a game where he scored those 2 touchdowns, it would have been this weekend. Unfortunately, I didn't get that bet right, but this is what it tells you. You see right here these consensus line movements for the bet. It gives you all this information that I absolutely love. I am a person who loves the most information I can get to make the best decision I can do. And this Outlier, it provides all the opportunity. Shout out Evan and crew. What they've built is just absolutely fantastic. It shows you 40% in the last 10 games that it's been successful for that money line for Jacksonville. So that just goes to show you some of the opportunities you see on Outlier and why I'm actually a huge fan of this. I really do love it.
Absolutely, 100% as well. It makes betting so much easier, so much more efficient. We're going to go back to take a look at the games now as well, too. For example, I'm looking at this one right here. If I'm looking to place a little bit of money, Green Bay has 0 for 10 in their last 10 games with covering the spread. So that means I'm not taking Green Bay to cover the spread here. I might take them to win outright, but I'm not touching that spread. Chicago, not a whole lot better. They're looking at about 5-5, but I'm going to take those odds for sure over that. And looking at the over, both teams have been able to combine and hit the over as well, especially Chicago with this last run that Justin Fields has been on. There are questions of if he might not play or if he will play, so that is the question there as well. But that's something I'd feel comfortable with there is looking at the over in this game as well.
Yeah.
Looking at Denver and Baltimore.
I actually want to point this out on this one, actually. If you guys look at the money line on Denver and Baltimore, if you look at the money line, you see a 3 plus 320 with a goblet and a minus 390 with a little, what is that, green logo that you might not know. But it's the DraftKings logo. The other one is the Caesar Sportsbook. So what that does is actually allows you to get the best odds for each bet. So if you want to, one of the companies has a better odds in one of the situations, that's the company that they're going to suggest you make that bet with. All you got to do is click on it, and you can actually make that bet directly from the app by clicking that little ticket in the top right, and it'll go directly to the account you have set up right there from the My Picks. And it's all four of the major sports books. So you have DraftKings, FanDuel, Caesars, as well as BetMGM. I think they're still working on getting Bally Sports, if I'm not mistaken. So you can see it right there. I mean, look, add the bet to bet slip. And this is one thing that we're going to start getting involved in. We're actually going to share some of DJ's best bets down the road, and you'll see some more social media posts as well about some of the daily stuff we get involved in.
Absolutely. And I do want to point out, too, we've always nag on Denver, rightfully so. Last 10 games against the spread, 8-2 with an 8.5-point spread against a Baltimore Ravens team that likes to choke away leads. Keep an eye out for 4th and 4. If these odds are still looking like this when we make those bets, DJ might be throwing a little bit of money here and there as well, too. And I know darn well you never pick the over when it comes to Denver, and they have showed that wholeheartedly right here, 9 out of the last 10.
I was about to say, it's easy to cover the spread when your defense gives up only 15 points and you've had spreads of less than 10 points each time.
Exactly. So looking at this 8.5 points, keeping out for 4th and 4. I might be taking that one myself there as well, too. So we are more than ecstatic to be working with them. We are T-minus 31 days from sports betting being legal in Ohio as well, too. So you know it's going to be an absolute blast, as I believe one of the 8 bigger states in the entire country is going to legalize it. If you are in a place that already has legal sports betting, definitely check them out. Click the link in our bio, Outlier.bet /high-low sports. It's 14-day free trial. Helps us out by you clicking on it. You get a chance to look through everything we just looked through as well, too. You like it, sign up for a subscription, keep it around. You'll win back a lot more than you pay for it as well, too.
Go ahead.
No, I say it makes betting much easier, and it takes a little bit of stress off you and potentially puts some more money in your pocket.
Absolutely. And on the point of money, guys, do not bet more than you can afford. Set a limit. If you go over the limit, stop. If you need help, there are contact lines. Search it up on Google. Get the help if you need it, guys. Let's be very clear about that. We are very strong proponents of mental health, and this is one of those situations as well. It is something that can lead you down that path. So, guys, be careful with betting. That's why we suggest the Outlier app. It allows you to bet smarter, not harder, not more money. It's going to bet smarter, allow you to win a little bit more.
Bet responsibly as well too. But that will do it for us here today on the High Low Sports Podcast. We appreciate you all joining us. Those of you stuck with us through all the way to the end, we appreciate you as much as well. Any of you listening to on your on any of your favorite podcast apps, thank you for joining us. Check out the stream if you want to see what Outlier looks like as well too. You see that on our YouTube page or on our Twitter page as well too. Go check those out. Or honestly, just go ahead and click the link in our bio, sign up and try it out for yourself as well too. Highly recommend it as well. Doesn't cost you a thing if you just want to sign up to take a look at as well too. It's easier to sign up for that than it is to sign up for Facebook. So we appreciate you all joining us, and we will see you all again next week.